When I was in grade 10, we had a new English teacher at school. His name was Mr. Scott. He was young and very handsome. Mr. Scott had dark hair and kind brown eyes. He was only 24 years old. All the girls in our school liked him during breaks. They often walked past his classroom just to see him. Mr. Scott was very polite and friendly. The other teachers liked him too. Some young teachers always tried to talk to him, but he stayed professional and focused on teaching. I also liked Mr. Scott. I thought he was the best teacher in the world. I never missed his classes and always did my homework. But I was a shy girl. My classmates often joked with him and asked silly questions, but I couldn't do that. I just worked hard in his class and listened to him carefully. Sometimes I wore my favorite dress to his lessons, hoping he would notice me during class. I felt very nervous when he called on me. My heart beat fast and my hands shook, but I always answered his questions because I wanted to impress him. Mr. Scott always gave me good grades. He often smiled and said, "Good job, Emma." Hearing this made me happy the whole year. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I even dreamed about him at night. One day I found out where he lived. His house was near my neighborhood. Sometimes I walked past his house hoping to see him. If I did, he would smile and say hello. If he was with his friends, I felt very jealous. When I moved to grade 11, something terrible happened. Mr. Scott left the school. He got a new job in another city. I was very sad. I missed him so much. I even walked past his old house, but he wasn't there anymore. After some time, I started preparing for my university exams. I joined extra English classes on my first day. I couldn't believe it. Mr. Scott was the teacher. I felt so happy to see him again. He smiled and said, "Welcome back, Emma," for 6 months. I worked hard in his class. I became one of his best students. Sometimes we stayed after class to talk. He asked me about my plans for the future. I asked him about his new job one day. He offered to walk me home. I was so surprised but also very happy after that. He often walked me home. I felt like the luckiest girl in the world. Soon we started spending more time together. We went to the park, watched movies, and talked for hours. I still remember our first kiss. It was like a dream. I thought Mr. Scott was the perfect man. But one day he told me he had a new job offer in another country. He had to move to the USA. I felt heartbroken. We promised to write letters to each other for a while. We stayed in touch, but life was busy. For the first few months, we wrote letters to each other. I waited for his letters every week, but over time the letters became fewer. I started college and we lost touch. 8 years passed. One day I found Mr. Scott on a social media site. I sent him a message and he replied, "We decided to meet." I was very excited to see him. I dressed nicely and went to the cafe where we planned to meet. When I saw him, I was surprised. He looked different. He was older now and he had gained some weight. His hair was not as blonde, and his blue eyes were not as bright. We talked for hours, but I felt something was missing. He was not the same person I had loved as a teenager. After the meeting, I thought about him. I remembered the young, handsome teacher who made me happy in school, but I realized that my feelings had changed. We grow up, we change. What was important to us before is not always important now. But I will always smile when I think about my first love. My teacher, Mr. Scott. After meeting Mr. Scott again, I felt both happy and sad. I was happy to see him and talk to him, but I was also sad because I knew my feelings for him were gone. The next day I looked at old photos from school. I saw pictures of my friends, my teachers, and even Mr. Scott. I smiled when I saw them. I thought those were beautiful days, but now my life was different. I was a grown woman. I had a job, new friends, and new dreams. 1 week later, I received a message from Mr. Scott. He said, "It was nice meeting you. I hope we can stay friends." I replied, "Thank you, Mr. Scott. It was nice seeing you too. I wish you all the best." We talked a little more, but I knew it was time to move on. One evening, I walked in the park near my house. It started to rain, and I remembered the time Mr. James walked me home in the rain. I smiled. I thought, life is like rain. Sometimes it feels cold and sad, but it also helps new flowers grow. I still remember Mr. Scott sometimes, but now I feel happy when I think about him. He was a part of my story, but he was not the end of it. Life is full of surprises. It brings new people and new dreams into our lives. And sometimes the best moments come when we least expect them. If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching.